All right, in lesson 7.4, it's very similar to 7.3. In 7.3, we solved addition and subtraction equations. In 7.4, we're solving multiplication and division equations. So, I'm still going off of the concept, I need to do the opposite operation to solve for the variable. The whole goal is to figure out what value the variable has to make the equation true. In example 1, let's say I have a problem like 6a equals 54. Actually, let's make it a little bit harder. 78. 6a equals 78. Now, you are allowed to use your calculators this chapter, so you can get them out if you want. All right, now, I need to ask myself, what operation is connected here to my variable? What operation?
Multiplication.
It's multiplication, right? Multiplication. Anytime you see a number and a variable next to each other, you say, well, I didn't see parentheses. We don't use parentheses. Anytime you see a number and a variable together, it means multiplication. What's the opposite of multiplication?
Division.
Division. So to get this variable by itself, I have to divide by whatever number is attached to it. Does everybody agree that 6 divided by 6 is 1?
Yes.
Okay. So A equals 78?
No.
What do I need to do?
A equals 1.
A does not equal 1.
You have to do
CC?
6 divided by 7.
You have to divide the other side by 6. 78 divided by 6 is now 13. And that's my answer. Now, I check this in the same way that I checked it in 7.3. I substitute back into the original. And is it true that 6 times 13 is 78? Yes. So I say 78 equals 78, and I check it out. I box my checked answer, and I box my actual answer. 3x equals 81. I want you to solve for x. All right, so the first thing you want to do is you want to divide both sides by 3. Because remember, your goal is to get x by itself, so you have to get rid of 3. How do you do that? You divide by 3, it cancels down to 1, right? 1x, x, same thing. So now x equals what?
27.
X equals 27, but we're not done yet because we need to go back and check. 27, plug back in. Is it true that 3 times 27 is 81?
Yes.
So at this point, I'm putting it back in my calculator. 3 times 27, does that give me 81? If it does, I'd say 81 equals 81, and I check it out. I box my answer and my checked answer. Okay, you with me? Questions? CC, you got it? Ashley? Maya? Good. Victoria? Feel good? Okay. All right, now in example 2, now I'm dealing with division. Anytime you see a division problem, let's say it's x over 3 equals 23. Okay? Anytime you see a division problem, you know that you will have to multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal is the word that should come into your head as soon as you see a division problem or a fraction, any type of fraction, you know you have to multiply by the reciprocal. Okay? So, in this case, what's the reciprocal? What's the reciprocal? Multiply by what?
20.
By 3, right? Because I have x over 3, again, I've got to get x by itself. It doesn't have anything to do with 23. 23 is over on the other side minding its own business, okay? All right, I need to get x by itself. How do I get x by itself? I multiply by the reciprocal. So 3's cancel down, and I'm just left with x. Do you see how I did that? All right, it's not just this, just this like pattern that I followed. There's reasoning behind it. If I multiply by the reciprocal, it cancels out. That's what I call the multiplicative inverse, right? Multiply the inverse property of multiplication, multiply by the opposite, you always get 1. Now, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Does that make sense to you that I just multiplied that by 3? Some people were asking me today, well, why didn't you multiply that side by 3 over 1? Do you understand that 3 over 1 and 3, that's the same thing? Okay, so it doesn't matter. It worked better on the left side because that was a fraction. That's why I wrote it 3 over 1. Over here, I'm dealing with whole numbers. I'm just going to write it just 3. What's 23 times 3? 69, and that's my answer. Am I done yet?
No.
What do I need to do? Check it. Plug it back in. 69 divided by 3 equals 23. Step 1. 23 equals 23. Checks out. Step 2. Okay? Okay. Now you do this one on your own. X over 6 equals 28. Go ahead and solve for x. Same way we just did. All right, someone raise your hand and tell me what's the first thing you want to do.
Oh, I know that one.
Victoria? The reciprocal. So what do I multiply by?
6.
Okay, now look at your paper. Did you show a multiplication sign?
No.
Make sure you write a multiplication sign, okay? So now it cancels. You have to show that you're actually multiplying. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So what does x equal?
168.
168? Okay, so that's my answer. Now I need to plug it back in and check it. Very good, Ashley. 168 divided by 6 equals 28, step 1, and then I showed 28 equals 28, and I check it out. Okay? Okay, so I multiply by the reciprocal, work it out, check it, then I get my answer. All right, one more example, example 3. Now remember, the key here is reciprocal, okay? So if I have 3/5 r equals 15, my goal here is still to get r by itself, okay? I want to get r by itself. So how do I get r by itself? Well, how do I get 3/5 to cancel out? How do you think? Here's my key word way up here. What do I need to do? I need to multiply by the reciprocal. So what's the reciprocal of 3/5? 5 over 3. Now, that all cancels and I have r by itself, which was my goal. But whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Times 5/3. Now, it's a little easier if I make 15 a what? If I make it a fraction, right? 15 over 1. Can I cross-reduce anything?
Yes.
What?
3 and 15.
3 and 15 down to 1 and 5. And r equals what? 25. Am I done yet?
No.
All right, plug it back into the original. Now, on these, when I check it, I do have a little bit of work to show because I need to show that 3/5 times 25 over 1 equals 15. So cancel, and 15 equals 15. So I just had to show how they cross-canceled. Okay, and now I have 15 equals 15. You with me? You with me, understand? Any questions? What's my first step? What's my first step? Reciprocal, what's the reciprocal? 15 over 12. Get it to cancel. Get x by itself. Okay, now I have x by itself, but now I have to multiply negative 4 over 1 times 15 over 12. Okay, now that cancels down to negative 1. That's what Dawson was just asking. If it's negative, when you reduce it, you've got to keep the negative. And 3. Now I have negative 15 over 3 equals x. Final answer? Is that my final answer?
No.
What's negative 15 divided by 3?
Negative 5.
Negative 5. X equals negative 5. Now, am I done?
No.
Need to substitute back in and check. Negative 4 equals 12/15 times negative 5. Cross cancel down to a negative 1 and 3. And negative 4 equals 12 over 3. I'm sorry, negative 12 over 3 because 12 times negative 1. and negative 4 equals negative 4. It checks out. Obviously, you'll have more room on your paper. Okay? All right, so again, same idea, multiplying by the reciprocal. Thank you, Morgan. All right, if you understand that, that's everything you need to know for 7.4.